Aloha, everyone, and welcome to the Empowered Hour. I am super stoked today. I have one of my mentors, my coaches, doing some amazing work in the world. We have Arlene Limas from PAVE Prevention. Arlene, how you doing?
I'm great. Hi,
Oh,
Tasha. How are you? It's so nice to be with you. Thanks for waking up early for me.
oh yeah, no problem. I'm happy to be here. Yeah, doing good, doing good. So, tell them a little bit about, you, the work that you do. Just share a little background.
Sure. Eh, yeah, I can start kind of from the beginning. I'm a lifetime martial artist. I started martial arts when I was 5. Uh, Tasha and I have that in common, our passion for the martial arts. Um, and it's just taken me through some on some incredible paths, and took me con competition towards a competition path with which, as you know, led me to the Olympic Games, where I captured a gold medal representing Team USA in Seoul, Korea. First time the sport of Taekwondo was included in the Olympic Games. Um, Took me to events like World Championships and World Cup, and competing at the highest level. Incredible opportunities for me. And then when I retired from competition, I transitioned into coaching. And in wearing both those hats, athlete and coach's hat, uh, I saw far too many times inappropriate relationships, inappropriate behavior, inappropriate coercion from high level athlete to upcoming athlete, coach to athlete, administrator to athlete. And so that led me on very early on, even as an athlete, to advocate to make those things not happen, right? To protect our athletes on and off the playing field. And opened up a whole another path for me into the empowerment self-defense world. And yeah, in a nutshell, that led me to PAVE, which is proactive anti-violence education and prevention. And so that's where I'm at, fighting the good fight as an athlete, as a coach, and now as leadership for PAVE prevention, to create safer workplaces and a safer world, really. We're just doing it one workplace at a time, but really trying to create a better world.
That's awesome. When did PAVE start?
We are stepping into our 3rd year. So
Nice.
yeah, so we're almost out of that new startup phase, but yeah, we're I think we've achieved a lot in 2 years as we start our 3rd year. But yeah, it's been incredible, but still a startup. So
Yeah. So where are certain places that you've done work?
we've done work in Toronto through the shelter sector.
Okay.
We've done a lot of work through emergency preparedness sector and public safety sector in Toronto. We've done stuff with the State Department and ambassadors and health ambassadors, and women's empowerment and International Women's Day through the embassy sector, and even ahead of that, and even more in what I believe, yes, the work that we're doing and the clients that we have, fantastic. But in these first couple of years, what's even been more important for me, Tasha, is developing the tools, the assessment tools, the surveying tools, the data collection tools that will enable us to to validate our work, but also give clients the opportunity to see, this is where my office is at, this is where my company is at, this is where we could be, this is where I'd like to be, with a real score around culture in the workplace. And that's everything from like toxicity to empathy, like the good and the bad. Like what is, and what is our culture in our office?
So at the end, they get a report that basically has all the
Yeah.
data. That's great.
Yep. Yep. We call it our employee experience survey.
Okay.
And we've worked literally almost 2 years on it, but it's there. The reporting is there. The online platform that it's distributed in, and then the reports get distributed from. It's a beautiful report. It's nice and bright and colored and easy to absorb all the information. I think it's going to do a lot of good. Whether companies and institutions, organizations become clients of ours or not, I think the use of our tool is going to be really important.
Very cool. What specific areas are you focusing on right now? I know that at one point it was like the healthcare industry.
Yeah. I mean, we still focus on what we consider like our big three, which is the three sectors that are impacted by violence the most, which is the healthcare sector, the hospitality sector, and the emergency preparedness sector. Even though we know violence is occurring in every workplace, every day, something's happening. And when I say violence, it's that full spectrum, right? It's not just like a physical confrontation or a sexual assault. It's microaggressions, it's gaslighting, it's targeted omission, like people get excluded from meetings or not included. It's DEI issues. I mean, it's a lot. It's not just, where our mind goes to sexual assault and physical confrontations. It's all of that we're hoping to stop, so it never leads up to those full-blown physical events, or even now something that I'm really, for whatever reason, and I usually listen when things pop into my brain and my heart, and now really what is nagging a little bit at my brain and my heart is violence against self and people taking their own life.
Yeah.
This is very few things happen instantly. People usually travel a path to get somewhere, and if we can disrupt the dominoes, right? If we can stop something 10, 12, one step before something really bad happens, that's what we hope to do.
Yeah. As you're talking, I'm thinking about this book, Triggers. It's by Marshall Goldsmith. And he works with different companies, and he talks about workplace temperament. He also comes in, but usually it's the CEO who asks him to come in. But a lot of times he finds that it's like the leadership is part of the problem. Is that something that you've come across and you address? If so, how do you do that?
So along with that employee experience survey, there is an interview process that also contributes to the score. And that interview process is with that C-suite level management leadership. So those two kind of things merge to give that organizational score. So yeah, we do address that. And, one of the things that came out of our summit, we hosted a summit to reduce violence in the workplace. Like, let's have these real tough discussions. We brought in leadership from the healthcare sector, the hospitality sector, the emergency preparedness sector. And we started having these discussions. And of course, everybody was saying the exact same things were happening in all of those sectors. But those sectors very rarely talk to each other on like how can we make this better. But anyway, one of the things that came out of that is you had this whole group of people in the room that were saying, this has to be a top-down kind of change, right? So there was one side of the room that was like, it's got to be policies and it's got to be repercussions and, all of these things. Great, right? And then there was the other side of the room that was saying, oh no, we need to empower the individual so that, they can stop these things on their own, they can address these things. And I think it really is one of the unique things about PAVE is that we see that it's going to take both of those things coming together. All stakeholders have to have a seat at the table. If we're dealing with a restaurant group, then front of the house, back of the house, management, everybody needs to be at the table when we're discussing that violence prevention plan. So it's not just, we're going to empower all the employees to be able to set a boundary and use their voice and be good bystanders. but then they get no support from leadership. Oh, that's not going to work. So, right, it has to be everybody's sitting at that table and having these discussions.
So as you're talking, I'm just thinking about the boundary setting, the de-escalation. That's something that I've noticed have come up in different reviews for my course. People talk about, I never even thought about that is violence. I never even considered that, this is some sort of microaggression that's happening at work. So explain that to someone who, for the longest time, they think of just physical violence as opposed to, what could be happening and why it's so needed to have something like your work at their
Right.
office.
Well, I think at a minimum, not addressing those things like microaggression, micro stresses, gaslighting, bullying, all those little things. At a minimum, we're robbing ourselves of a good working culture, of a good, positive, healthy work culture. And who knows what we can accomplish if we get there, right? How much more successful that company can be, and the people working in it, how much healthier and their well-being. It shouldn't be sacrificed, right? So that's at a minimum. If we're start looking at those smaller things, those, whatever, those little things, how come we have to focus on them? I think it's important that we do.
Yeah.
Okay. But on the other end of the spectrum, we know that all those things left unchecked will lead to something else.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying about things don't happen in an instant. It's all these things. It's that, they didn't respect my boundary when I said I can't work another weekend. I cannot work another weekend. You've asked me, I've come in the last 6 weekends in a row. I'm setting a boundary. I can't work again. It's those lead to something else. That leads to maybe that person quitting. Do we want that? Now we have to retrain somebody. We have to advertise to bring someone else in. We have to train them. We have to integrate them in our systems. All these expenses come up, right? For the company, when we could just address that by creating a healthier culture. So yeah, those things add up. One, the dominoes could fall so that something really, really bad happens, right? Something physical, something full blown. Or the dominoes fall and we lose that really good employee, or there's someone that had the potential to become a really good employee. So addressing those microaggressions are huge.
We're talking also about monetary loss. Can you just share a couple of stats with us about that? I'm curious. I've seen them on your social media, and I'm like, oh,
Oh,
cool.
I mean, it's ridiculous. It is amazing to me, since like we're stepping into our third year, but in these 3 years, in these two plus years now, it has been amazing to me how much money has been lost. And in addition to that, Tasha, how much money has been thrown at the problem, and nothing is getting better. But, leadership at these companies and in these sectors go, well, we offered them training. We gave them that module. They had that session, they had that workshop, but it's not getting better. We're not feeling safer. Our well-being is not being taken care of. We saw, right? The great resignation, right? We saw all these things already, in addition to toxicity in the workplace and in the world right now is at an all-time high, right?
Yeah.
So it's not getting better. So let's make some changes. The stats are staggering. It's in the billions, millions and billions of dollars that are lost. The ILO, I don't have the stats in front of me, but the International Labor Organization just, incredible amounts of money and incredible amounts of statistics that are saying like 30% of people, 30% of all people that work in the world are saying that they have had some type of violence perpetrated to them in their work life.
It's a lot.
30%.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
The numbers are crazy.
I was just thinking, as far as education goes, I I remember, because I I have an education background. I also have, a social work background. I remember taking those tests, the online tests that they just sort of would push you through. And it was to check a box off, like, okay,
Yep.
yes, we've got that done. The sexual harassment in the workplace. Yep. Your 30 minutes of taking this is done. um, why is it so important to take the extra time? And when it comes to your trainings, I know that you go there in person. What are certain things that a corporation and industry can get out of an actual in-person training that they couldn't get
Well,
by checking a box?
right. I mean, I think there are still good you can do with a module, right? With an
Yeah.
online module, if the approach is right, you can still do a lot of good there.
Oh yeah.
And we right, exactly. So you know that, right? And
Yeah.
we're working on modules for the restaurant association right now, online modules. So there's still some value there. I will say that it's a different value than in person because, as you know, our training is trauma informed, and that's difficult to be trauma informed online sometimes, unless it's small group, a really small group that you're dealing with online, for you to be able to pay attention to trauma informed situations. That's one. That's why I prefer the in-person training. And then we're really heavily based in scenario practice. So people are walked through very specific scenarios based on the information we got from the employee experience survey, right? That assessment that they took,
Yeah.
and through interviews and conversations that we have with the employees and with the participants to customize these scenarios so that they're getting real world practice in how to set a boundary in something that feels real, like something they would have to do tomorrow in
Yeah.
their office. So those scenarios are really important to us.
Absolutely. Yeah. The
And
empowerment course that I just launched, I talk about scenario-based learn, the importance of scenario-based learning, game-based learning, and role play, and how you can actually work
yep.
through so much just from that. And I am definitely an advocate also for for online, because I have a whole bunch of online courses. I do see the benefit, and all of my students who are like, should I do an in-person training? I'm like, absolutely.
Yes. Yeah.
Absolutely, get in
Yeah.
there, there's benefits to both, and I think that it's important that we're coming at it from all different angles when it comes to violence
Yep.
prevention. um
I wanted to back up on one thing that you said on
yes,
this, the check the box training and, sexual harassment training and, includes a DEI training, check the box training on this. You know, I think at some point there was a shift in HR, in
yeah,
human resource department, right? HR used to be that department that worked for the employees, that protected the
yes,
employees, right? Protected the individual. And somehow there's kind of been this shift where HR now protects the company.
yes,
And so I think that that needs to be thought about again and have discussions around this again. Like, hey, what do we really want this HR department to be? Is it just to mitigate risk for the company, or is it truly to take care of the employee?
absolutely, yes. I mean, it's the same with insurance companies. You get into an accident and it suddenly, like, your insurance company is against you.
Right, right,
Like,
right.
what just happened?
Yeah,
And I think that there's benefits to the online courses, in the sense that if you give somebody time to go through it, you're not rushing them, like, okay, you have this period of time, we got to get this through, you got to get this done so that we can move on to other stuff. I think that there's a lot of merit in it, and it's nice for people to take their time and really delve into the material. I just didn't
I
have that
think,
experience when I was working in the
right.
education system, and then also in social work. It was very much like, we need you to get this done so that you can get back in the field, or so that you can get back in the classroom. And so that was that was really interesting to me because it was like, well, isn't this information that I really need to know and absorb?
Right. You know, we within the world of sport, after the horrible things that we that the gymnasts, United States gymnasts shared with us of what happened to them and
Yes.
other things that have been happening to athletes within my sport of Taekwondo and so on. The U.S. Center for Safe Sport was created.
Yes. I
Now, the
took that
U.S.
course.
Center for Safe Sport, it has to work. I believe it really 100%. It has to work. Okay, it cannot fail.
Yeah.
But their access to coaches and athletes and parents is all through these online modules.
Mhm.
And you know, I've I've heard horror stories of coaches just sitting their 15-year-old athlete down in front of the the coaches course and saying, "Hey, take this for me," and then just print a certificate. I mean,
Great.
it's got to be followed up. It's got to be, there's got to be, even if it's once a year, even if it's, the money gets invested to someone that travels to regions and there's these regional workshops that are in person. I think there has to be some supplemental training to those modules or some type of circle back, something
Yeah.
that has to check to make sure that these modules are being processed the way they're intended to be. They're intended to be great. There's a lot
Yeah.
of great information on those online modules.
Oh, I took the safe sport.
Um,
It was really
yes,
thorough. I was like, oh,
you
my
know,
eyes are crossed.
right,
This is a lot of information, but it was really good information. And I feel like between that and the vector solutions that I took and the Relias that I took, those were the two other courses for the workplace. I felt like I got more from Safe Sports, just the breakdown and the videos too. Because some of the videos they can be a little bit corny in some of
right,
those, and
right.
it's just sort of like, okay, yeah, but is that really is that really how that goes? And I really enjoyed going through it because it was like, no, you can't just bypass this. It's not something that you
Right.
could like, oh, let me
I
skip.
mean, you have to take it. You have
Yeah.
to take it and you have to answer the questions, and that's great, but we did a kind of a pilot program where Judith and I spent a week in Colorado Springs at the Olympic Training Center, and we didn't have access to athletes, but we had access to some administrators. And one of the groups we worked with was USA Hockey, and just literally having a conversation of, hey, is it okay for a coach to ask their athletes to babysit their kids? Let's have a conversation about that,
Yeah.
right? Half of the room said, yeah, that's fine. Half of the room said, no, that's completely inappropriate. That's a safe sport violation. Blah, blah, blah. Well, let's discuss it. I
Yeah.
think those are the type of things that have to happen to really create change. And you're not going to get that out of a module. You might get it from, a set webinar where we're having these discussion with coaches, but it's got to be more than just a module that's cookie cutter, one size fits all. Everybody gets this.
Yeah. Very true. Very true. So, outside of this work that you do, I see, you have family that is in your life. That's something that's very important to you. Has any of, you've got two boys, I believe. Um,
Yes.
has any of that really influenced like why you want to do this work?
I mean, I think my guys are pretty good guys.
Yeah,
I
they
think they're
are.
they're
Yeah.
good men. They're good men. Um, and there is a part of the ESD movement, as you know, that really gears their energy towards gender-based violence,
Mhm.
um, and I respect that. I really do. I really do respect that work, and I think it's incredibly important. It is a part of the work we do at PAVE. But for me, and when I think about my boys, when I think about my guys, I don't want them to feel like just because they were born a guy that they're wrong or they're bad or there's, you know, I need them. I need men and boys at the table with us having this conversation, not only for gender-based violence, but for violence in general, and especially violence in the workplace. We need them advocating for everyone. We need everybody advocating for everyone in the workplace. So yeah, I guess in that way, it does influence me because, you know, there are a lot of passionate people in the gender-based violence world that I have a lot of respect for, but for them to include males in their training or boys in their training, they wouldn't do it. So I think that, you know, my viewpoint is they need to be there. And maybe that's, I mean, I know that's influenced by my guys, you know, I don't want to exclude them in how they move through the world. And now my grandson on how he moves through the world.
Aw, that's so cute. Yeah, I mean, I agree. It's really interesting because for me, I definitely am like a woman's empowerment. I love working with women. A lot of my focus on my business has been catered to women. But I can't tell you how many times I've had messages from men who have taken my courses, and I had a guy who was from Greece. He sent me a message and he goes, you know, I took every one of your courses, and then I went to your webpage and I realized that you cater to women. And I was like, that doesn't mean you can't take my course. You should, you know, like, I'm happy you're taking the course. And I was like, did you learn something? And he goes, yeah, I never thought about the, you know, like a lot of the boundary stuff, guys experience it too. They
Yep.
experience discomfort. They, you know, like they experience harassment. It was really interesting to me to you know, I had these messages. I had a guy from the military. I had another guy from the police force. They messaged me, and these kind of conversations, they were like, you know, this really hit home for me because all of the self-defense courses I've taken, they've all been, you know, physical. And you know, going over your course, it was one of the first times that I thought about, wow, yeah, I had a superior who did this, and it was really frustrating for me, and I felt violated, but I didn't know I felt violated until you know, looking at all of this stuff. So I do think that it is really important for us to be able to address this and to have all genders at the table. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, Tasha, we're just convinced that it's just part of it. It's just par for the course. It's just what we have to deal with. You know, the nurse who, you know, gets harassed and pushed and physically assaulted in the emergency room. Oh, it's just my job. It's just part of my job. No, it's not. You know, we're just so desensitized when it comes to these things. And I think, you know, we don't hear about it a lot, but there was a predatory doctor that moved within the men's wrestling movement, within
Oh,
that sport. And the impact that most people feel this doctor had and the victims that he had, it's believed that it would make gymnasts look very small. I mean, they're thinking in the thousands that this doctor at Ohio State had access to. It's wrestling, tough sport. Men, the boys and men that are doing it are in incredible shape and they're strong. So how could this happen? But we know it happened, and we know that that doctor had access to college athletes, high school athletes, in addition to access to the clinic uh, on campus. But because it's men, it stays kind of quiet, you know,
yeah,
and we know that for every one person that comes forward, there's two or three more that didn't come forward, right? We know
absolutely.
this. So, I mean, it's tough. I think, again, I feel very passionate that, you know, these conversations that we are having, everybody needs to be at the table. Everybody needs to be included in these conversations. So you asked, that's a long answer to, you know, has my family impacted, you know, how I skew the work? Yeah, absolutely. In addition to that, I'll share with you, Tasha, something I did not anticipate is that as I moved through this work with PAVE, how many of the elders in my family are coming forward and sharing things with me that happened to them that I had no idea happened to them. And it's just strengthened my resolve that, now is the time. Now, like right now, we cannot wait any longer. Things have to change. Things have to get better.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, I know you helped me in 2019. That was huge. That was like a gateway. I hadn't been able to communicate what had happened for me at my martial arts school, so that was really, really touching. Yeah.
Well, you know, that this training allows us to heal, right? It opens up this opportunity for us to regain our own strength, regain our own voice, and to move forward in a supported way, right? I'm happy that I was able to, usher that in for you. I believe strongly that it's the thing we can't prove right now. It's the thing we don't have data on now. But our training, based in ESD, Empowerment Self-Defense Training, PAVE's training is based in that, will help people heal. And so, I'm hoping that, we come back and we talk in a year from now or in 2 years from now, and we have the data that supports that.
Yeah.
So
Now, I know that you partner with different ESD folks all over the world. Tell me about that. I think that that's an important factor in your business model that not everybody knows.
well, I mean, I think that you and I know, I don't think the rest of the world knows, or a small portion of the world knows, that this work has been done for 30, 40, 50 years already. you know, there have been people in our movement doing this work for quite a long time. I'm not saying that they have framed it like PAVE is framing it and like PAVE is moving forward with it, but there have been elements of this work being done for a very, very long time. So how can I not honor that? How can I not move forward and ask their opinions and ask their input and ask for them to contribute? I don't know any other way how I have to honor that. And, until PAVE is at a place where we have our stable of PAVE trainers that, move all around the world, we will always partner with the best absolute teachers that we can partner with. And, that's what we do. If we have a client in Toronto or a client in Oakland, we look for people from the communities that are the best of the best, or we bring in the best of the best to help us design the curriculum based on the client's needs. So we've partnered with Impact Bay Area, we've partnered with Impact Boston, we've partnered with Clara Porter. I mean, we again, we will partner with people that best serves our client. And that's important. We're not going to compromise on who's stepping in for our client.
I did want to bring this up. I was thinking of some of the chapters you had mentioned. As far as funding for PAVE, now I know that originally you had an angel investor, and now it's more on its own. I wanted you to just share that so people could hear a little bit about that.
I mean, PAVE grew out of the collaborative and the vision of the incubator that I participated in. Wow, I think it's like 6 or 7 years ago now, where Judith Sedikman brought in 20 plus leaders in the empowerment self-defense world and said, sit here for a week with me and let's decide, let's hash out what we would need to move the empowerment self-defense world forward, make it more accessible to more people, take it around the world, bring people of color in, really grow this movement. What does it take? And we were literally, I joke around with it that we were sequestered for a week, but yeah, that's what we were. We were in this remote upper New York State campground, and We did the work. We created the vision, and then from that, UD created different elements of this vision, and pay prevention was one of those. I mean, we do most of our adult learning at work.
Yes.
So if we could access these people with this skill set, these human safety skills at work, that's what grew out of that. And that's how PAVE grew out of that collaborative and that incubator.
Nice. Nice. And yeah, it's really interesting to just see the progression of this movement and how it's growing and expanding to so many different areas. I'm really excited to see where it goes in the next couple of years. I'm curious, with all of this stuff that you did because it's absolutely incredible. I think, if you look back at your 5-year-old self, would your 5-year-old self be like, hey, I'm going to be a CEO of this company and we're going to be doing all this traveling and all this stuff. If you could give a piece of advice to, your younger self, what would that be?
I think it's just, I think for me, the hardest thing for me to work through was that people didn't see the world like I did. You know what I mean? That there are going to be people out there that don't see the world like you, don't feel your sense of urgency, don't, and it's okay. Some people are going to get on the train before it leaves the station. Some people will jump on right as the train starts moving. Others will chase it and jump on the caboose, and some won't ever get on. It's okay. So that's what I would tell people. Just, do your thing, do your thing, and don't get bogged down by the people that, tell you it's not going to work or you can't do it or that doesn't make sense. Just be steadfast. Keep moving forward.
Yeah. No, I know life is definitely different from when I was a kid or when you were a kid to how it is now with the school climate, with students in general. The technology is completely different. What would you say to kids now, if you could give them a piece of advice? Because I know that there are a lot of kids that are just struggling.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough time. I would not want to be a kid right now. I would not want my boys to be a kid right now. I worry about my grandson and what school will look like for him in a couple of years. And um, I mean, I don't know. I just think we need to be engaged. I would hope that we surround our young people with engagement, with questions, with hello, how are you? How was your day? We have so many tools out there now that are supposed to make it easier to communicate with
More
each other, and we
complicated.
seem to communicate less.
Yes.
We seem to engage less, or at least we're only engaging at a superficial level. So, wow, advice to a young person, I would say just do things, try things, be adventurous, step out of whatever box you have for yourself and for the box that your parents put on you and put you in, step out of those things, when you're old enough to realize I want to try something, try a lot of things.
Yeah, that's great. I know the pandemic has really changed the landscape for how we do things. And I know that it's definitely influenced our young people, but it's also influenced adults. How do you see that as a negative, and how do you see that as a positive for moving forward into the future?
I mean, I think this younger generation and the pandemic, like my youngest son, I mean, him and his friends, they get it in a sense that, you know, they don't even want to stop and take a picture. They just want to absorb the moment that they're in.
Yeah.
I'd rather experience this completely than stop and rush through my backpack and grab my phone out and take a picture. I mean, they want to be present, and I'm learning from them. I'm learning from them, you know. Um, so there are some good things I think that are going to come out of the pandemic. That's for sure. But that's the biggest thing that I always catch, you know, that always catches my attention, especially with my youngest son, William. Like I said, he fights to be present, even in a crowd, you know. He wants that. And I've learned from that. You know, put the phone away. Yes, this dinner is great, and I've got my family all around me, and you know, I'd love to get a picture, but uh, let's just enjoy this. Let's just enjoy this right now. And so what, we don't get the picture right now. And, you know, so I try to find that balance of being present and then capturing these moments for, you know, posterity to say. But yeah, I think this younger generation, they're finding a balance on that. And they're finding that balance at work as well. What's important to me professionally, and how can I still maintain balance that I feel spiritually okay, personally okay, but I'm successful. And what does successful look like? I notice for my guys, successful looks completely different than what my parents told me successful was. So I think there are a lot of good reflections that are going to come out of the pandemic as well.
So how can people find PAVE?
You can find us online, paveprevention.com. And there's a lot of information on our website. We have not by any of my doing, but we have a beautiful website that has a lot of information on it. You can sign up for our newsletter. We'll start our own podcast series again. Last season was fantastic for us, but we will start actually, I'm recording our first episode today, and that's Disrupting the Dominoes, which is available on all the platforms that podcasts are available on, you know. And yeah, we're on all those social media places that we're supposed to be, and reach out if you have questions, or you know, you'd like to know more about us, reach out.
All right. Well, Arlene,
We'll
thank you so much.
we'll be in New York. We'll be in New York in a couple of weeks, as part of the United States UN's Commission
Yes,
on the Status of Women, which is a huge event, and we're super
amazing.
excited about being accepted as one of the parallel events. Um, we're getting a really good response to reservations. So like our room is almost filled, and our online meetup and our in-person meetups are at capacity. So I'm pretty excited about this experience and being a part of that event.
That's awesome. Arlene, thank you so much for coming on. It's always good to see you.
It's great to see you, Tasha. As usual, I'm very proud of all the work that you're doing, and you know, you came to that training, and you embraced it, and you grew, and you have gone, man, this changed my life, and I'm going to change as many people's life with what I know. And I'm very proud of you for what you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you. For all of you who are watching, if you are interested in finding PAVE, I will have all of her information on the description, and definitely check it out. Check out her website, check out the social media. That's where I get all of my PAVE news. So yeah, thank you so much again for coming on. And if you like what you see, subscribe to that YouTube channel, and we will have updates on our social media. Aloha.